Okay, today is July 25th, 2012, and we're here interviewing John Sledge at the Armory in Bloomington, Illinois. Okay, John is how old, sir? Now?
I'm 69.
69, and you were born on?
26th day of December, 1942, the worst day of the year.
Nobody
Nobody wants to celebrate the day after
they
Christmas.
Don't. Nobody wants anything day after Christmas. Okay. My name is Sandra Fritz, and I'll be your interviewer. And could you state for the recording what war and branch of service that you served in?
I was in the U.S. Army.
Okay, and where did you serve?
Vietnam.
Okay, and what was your job assignment?
Which time?
We'll get them all. We can get them all.
I was a reconnaissance scout.
Wow, that's interesting.
Air cavalry.
That's interesting. Ooh, okay. So, what we're going to kind of do today is, if you want to talk and start, you can. I've got some questions that can kind of start you on your way.
You go through
that
your
just kind of depends on what you want to do. So, so obviously you saw combat.
Yes.
And so, this doesn't, the other gentleman did that, but did you, I'll start with the good stuff. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yes.
Okay, what did you receive them for, and what have you got? Have you brought stuff to share with us? Ooh, look at all of them. Let's make sure we get that. I want to make sure we get. That's very nice. Wow, look at the purple, 2 purple hearts and a bronze star. Wow. I will not call you. I might call you sir anyway. That's very nice. All right. So you want to share how you got some of those, or tell us any stories about your...
Anytime you get a Purple Heart, you made a mistake.
You did not. You did not.
Yes, you do.
So tell us about your 2 mistakes then.
Really just a same.
Oh, okay, let's make sure we get that. Look at your ration card. And your dog tags. Who did this for you? This is really cool. Did you do it?
I did it.
It's very neat. Look at that mustache. You're cool. Wow, that is impressive.
Okay. The second Purple Heart is the one that counts.
Okay.
In the Tet Offense, February 2nd, 1968.
Okay.
We went from Pleiku to Khartoum. We finally got inside the camp at Khartoum, and I was sitting in a trench with my head exposed when an aerial rocket burst went off and got me through the neck and shoulder, and I was medevaced out. All right. Spent from then until October in and out of hospitals. So wow. That's it.
Wow. So that's how you're disabled, because that's a humdinger there, sir.
Well, ultimately, you can see this one a little bit. My windpipe collapsed, and they had to remove a portion of it at San Antonio at the Brooke Army, in the burn unit. So that's.
How did you become? Did you say you were an Army, not scout? What was the term? Reconnaissance. So what does that entail?
It was an air cavalry unit. When the helicopters would go out and see something on the ground, they would put 10 of us in to see what was there. If we found something and it was bigger than we were, we run like hell. If they were smaller than us, we tried to capture one to bring in.
How did you get involved in that? How did you choose that?
You're drafty. Uncle Sam took me there.
And chose that for you. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We ended up in the air cav helicopter unit.
So did you have friends that you made in that unit that you or?
Well, Yes, I did, but when you spend the next 6 months in the hospital, you lose a lot of contact
Right.
with them.
Right.
All right.
Right. So that makes
So,
sense. Okay.
yeah.
So how soon after you were when you got drafted and then you went to basic, right?
Okay, I went to basic.
Mhm.
From basic, I took advanced training at I took basic at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Mhm.
Then I took advanced AIT at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Mhm.
From there, they put the unit together in Fort Knox, Kentucky. So we were at Fort Knox from February to September of '67,
Where are you originally from?
right here,
Right here.
8 miles south of
Okay.
here.
All right.
I mean,
Okay.
here is here
Right.
at Bloomington.
Right. Illinois.
Bloomington,
You're an Illinois boy. Okay.
But McLean County all my
Okay.
life.
All right.
But then from Fort Knox, when they put the unit together, which was the 7th of the 17th Air Cavalry,
Mhm.
they shipped us in October to Vietnam of '67.
Mhm.
So I got into Vietnam in October of '67.
Mhm.
Shortly thereafter, got my first Purple Heart when I was shot through the leg. Uh, didn't count to anything. A Band-Aid and a little iodine cured it. The next, but we were there until February the 2nd of the Tet Offense, which was a major uprising within the country.
Mhm.
And that's when I got my big ticket home.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. So you did, but you didn't spend a lot of time because you got wounded so quickly
I
after
think
being
93 days.
93 days. Okay.
In
Well,
country.
obviously, this is my favorite question because it's just so silly. Did you feel pressure, stress, or anxiety?
At what point?
When didn't you feel it? Might be an easier question than when did you feel it?
When you was in base camp, it wasn't too bad. When you stepped outside the wire and started out there with 10 of you by yourself,
Right.
it was a little stressful.
That was a little stressful. That's surprising to me. I'm so surprised at that. It's being your response. Oh my gosh. So would you say that your most memorable experience was when you were injured, and so that was, or do you have another story that's more memorable, or?
I don't know. Every day was an adventure, and that's an incorrect word. Every day you were scared to death.
Right. Right.
But it was something different. I think I was amazed at the way the enemy maintained things. It was amazing that they could run water over a mile through bamboo piping from one place. They could also run smoke through little wood and leaf chimneys for a half a mile up a ridge, so that you never knew where they were.
Right. So it had to be, from a boy from McLean County, that had to be a totally different.
Well, we were country boys.
Well, yeah.
We were a little different, but it was a culture shock.
I'm sure.
But in '67, '66, when they drafted us, I ended up with a young man from Brownstown, Texas, clear down on the Rio Grande, one out of the Bowery of New York. We had a boy out of Minnesota. I mean, it was a mixture. You wouldn't. Everybody throughout the country was there at one point. And probably the best friend I really had was a musician out of New York City. He's quite an accomplished musician. He's a world authority today with Middle Eastern music at the time of Christ. And we were there with, John was there, I was there. And he told me when we met earlier, he says, I could have been in the 3rd Army Band, but I wanted to see what a real soldier was like.
Wow.
So we're over there in Vietnam. All hell breaks loose once. We're out there. You're laying on a grenade and it feels like you're wrestling a watermelon. It's up that big. And John looks at me and he says, I wish to hell I was in the 3rd Army Band. Now, that's my friend John.
That's your friend John. That's a good story. That's a good story.
And he was right. All of us wished to hell we was
You were in the band.
I can't carry a tune.
That's right.
But I wished I was in the 3rd Army Band too.
I bet you did. That's a great story. Oh my gosh. Were you now? You weren't gone, so were you able to stay in touch with your family? And were you? How old were
Only
you?
through the mail.
19.
No, in '66 I was 24.
Okay.
What happened? President Kennedy had exempted all married people from the draft. I had got married when I was 20.
Okay.
In '66, that was in '63. In '66, President Johnson rescinded that. So they drafted 61 of us. I think it was 61 in McLean County in September of '66 that had all been exempted for 3 years because we was married.
Right.
So when we went down there with big fat married people, 24, 25 years old, when we got to basic camp in all out of McLean County, a lot of us knew each other. Of course, then we got dispersed all over the world, you know. But that was, so we were draftees. Most of the people I served with were draftees. Practically everyone.
Right. Right.
Because quite simply, if you want to know, the permanent party at that time was all drunk. Whether we admit it or not. If you'd been in the service over 7 years, you were primarily an alcoholic.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's experience is unique to them.
Right.
Each one of us, it's different for every one of us.
Because you met so many different people and whole experience.
We had a young man out of the Bowery of New York. He says, "Sergeant Sledge, I'm here to stay. Nobody's shooting at me here. I got a warm place to sleep, and they feed me 3 times a day."
And you're like, "Send me home."
I wanted to come home. All right.
So did you have plenty of supplies, and was the food just, how was the food?
Sea rations.
Was it?
Most of the time. Yeah, they fed us as good as could be expected. When we managed to get into base camp, we were fed good. When we was out traveling, that was before they went to the really good food, which was the freeze-dried and the MREs.
Right.
We still lived on sea rations, but being an air cav unit, we had priority on the helicopters because that's the way we traveled.
Right.
They resupplied us. You lost something, they replaced it immediately. Your jacket, your whatever, ammunition. We had all we could shoot most of the time. So, no, I have no qualms about being resupplied.
Right.
Lost a lot of it when they medevaced me out.
Right. Well, yes.
It never did catch up with me.
I would say that would be the case there. So did you get any R&R at all? Did you?
No.
Yeah, you were pretty much
I was there too short a time.
You were, to get any of that kind of stuff. And you brought us your really cool medals and your photos. So do you, so you were, when did you finally get out of the hospital and get to come home?
Medevaced from Vietnam to a MASH unit. And then from there to almost better than 2 weeks in Japan. From Japan, they brought me back to the United States in the blue hospital uniform. But we landed in, I was ambulatory even though I had a stretcher. I was one of the fortunate ones. We landed in whatever air base it is in Alaska in February. I got off the airplane and stood on the ground in February in my blue hospital. So I was in Alaska at that time. From there, I went ended up Belleville, Fort Scott, or Camp Scott, I think they call it. From there to Fort Riley, Kansas. From Fort Riley, I came home for 30 days, went back. Then they sent me to Fort Hood, Texas, and I began to have breathing problems, severe ones. So they looked at me and decided they was going to take part of my windpipe out. That was the only solution. And there was 1 chance out of 4. They said I would die on the table. But, it's your choice is made. My life I couldn't walk across gym floor out here without running out of air.
Right.
So then they operated on that, sent me home, and then my time was about up. And the government and I had a disagreement as to who was responsible for what. And not knowing at the time, I thought the military should take care of me. They thought the Veterans Administration should.
Wow.
So anyway, I think convenience of the government, I was retained for 14 days. I finally decided I wanted to go home.
Right.
Worse than I wanted to stay there and argue with them. So I signed off, came home and found out that really the VA took over where the Army left off.
So then once all that recovery was over, what did you do back here in?
When I came back,
Right.
I went, primarily it was an aspect of the GI Bill, but it was not, I was under a rehabilitation program, which was a little better than the GI Bill. I got like 90% of the money, but I got it 100% of the time.
Okay.
And they also bought my books. They paid my tuition.
So you went to school?
So I went back to college.
What'd you do?
Well, they had put me in something that my disability would not hinder.
What was that?
It was accounting. You're not supposed to have to talk as an accountant because I was not supposed to be able to talk.
Wow, really?
They told me the injuries to my throat, my vocal cords and the like, that I would not. So I could whisper pretty good.
You talk very well.
Well, there's certain words I still have not learned to enunciate. You have to speak in a manner different than
so to learn, you had to go to rehab and all that kind of stuff to learn.
So anyway, through the rehab program, I got my degree in accounting.
So now you get to be an accountant.
Yeah, that's basically the way I spent the next 30 years.
And then what'd you do?
Well, we went in business for ourselves in a seed company, and now I'm retired.
Good for you.
Retired, yes. We run a few mules and bale a lot of hay. That's it.
Okay, so do you and you get your friends? You're still friends with the guy that does the MIDI stereo music?
Yeah. His actual name is John Valentine, but if you look him up on the internet and for his music, it's called Vartan. John Vartan, and he plays. I think they call it a ute. It looks like half a watermelon that's pregnant.
Yeah.
So John and I still communicate.
So do you go
among others?
So you so you're part of the DAV here. Are you active in that? What do you?
I attend it every month. Whether I'm active or not.
Whether you're active is another story.
I belong to the American Legion. I belong to the VFW and the DAV. I probably do more for the DAV than any of the others, but I also attend the VFW regularly at Hayworth.
So do you get together with John, or do you just communicate with phone and
occasionally email? That's about the extent.
Because you did a whole lot of traveling, just in that short period of time. You went a whole lot of places.
I was in more bases in 2 years than most people.
Yeah, but you get to see anything? You were mostly inside, were you?
Well, you were restricted in your mobility.
So you didn't get to go a lot. Is that what you're saying? The previous gentleman got to spend some time with some ladies, but you were married, so you didn't get to do that.
We
didn't get to do that.
But at that time, the hospital in San Antonio was a great place because if you were ambulatory, they did not bring your meals to you. You went to the cafeteria. When you entered the cafeteria, you had two choices. You could go off to the right for southwestern Mexico food, or you could go left for Yankee food. So you had your choice every day, and all of it you wanted. You know, it was better than. So the hospital stay, if you were ambulatory and could walk, was not too bad.
It was not too bad. Did your wife get to come down and see you, or?
She was there when I was operated on. And my parents also came down.
Yeah. Okay. How would you say? I know this, but how has your service and experience affected your life? Made you an accountant?
That's part. Due to the amount of shrapnel I still have in my body, there's never a morning that you don't wake up and you don't hurt.
Wow.
Every day, but I'm alive. Quite simply, when I was hit at 3:30 in the morning, is when I was injured. Took the last medevac flight out of that camp at Khartoum. They never got another one in to medevac anyone until 3:30 the next afternoon. I was fortunate.
Right.
We took a tremendous number of rounds through the hospital's Red Cross ship going out to the MASH unit. Sorted down, I was, but if you're still alive when we get to you, we'll work on you.
Mm-hmm.
So that I was still alive, and they worked on me.
Uh-huh.
When I came to the next day, and this is what I remember, the surgeon came to me. He says, "Young man, you're the luckiest young man I know.
Wow.
You're the luckiest young man I know." He said, "Just remember this, a quarter of an inch farther forward, and one of them would have cut your jugular vein and you'd have drowned in your own blood. Quarter of an inch farther back, one of them would have broke your neck." He says, "Now that's tough." He says, "Remember, you're the luckiest young man I know because you're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news is you'll never talk again." Well, that part he was wrong.
Luckily, he was wrong about that.
Well, he was right for about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Before.
What was it like not to talk?
You learn to smile.
Do you write on notepads, or
Whatever.
I mean, is that you have to?
Yeah, you raise your hand and wave.
Ring a bell.
Yeah. And he was right. I was lucky. I was alive. Of all the people I have seen injured, hurt, disabled, I will take mine.
Mm-hmm.
As painful as it is, I can do 95% of everything I want. It may take me longer.
Mm-hmm.
I get it done. I hurt, but when you get up, I can walk, I can talk,
Right.
I can feed myself. And you go to the VA clinic, we're losing what? 1,700 World War II people a day.
Yeah.
Those people went through hell.
Yeah.
Mine was a very short period.
Right. Right. But still, it was. Yeah.
So I have no major complaints.
Uh-huh.
I'm functional. I live by myself with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there?
Yeah. So does your military experience influence the way you think about the war and the military in general? I mean, what is your?
Well, I'm a great supporter of it,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you're.
Well, I figured that.
To.
I figured
yes. That. Oh, yeah. I really think we would, as a country, would be better off if we had a mandatory governmental service program.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone at the age of 18. The only exception to that is if you were still in school at the end of that semester, you go in and serve 1 or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a military or, I have an Amish friend from Arthur, Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
that I know. Same age as I am, was drafted the same time. He spent his 2 years in the hospital in Indianapolis working as an orderly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he may be a pacifist, but he still put in his 2 years of governmental service.
Right. Right.
So we could all do that.
Yeah. I think it would help.
Well, I do. Some people don't agree with
Right.
that.
That's true. It's
But
America. They don't
but
have
all
to.
the people
but yeah.
I served with, for all practical purposes, every one of us was a draftee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we bonded, we got along, we had a wonderful, I won't say a wonderful time,
Right. Right.
but, you know, you
you
sort
meet
of.
a whole bunch of different people. It gives you a different perspective, doesn't
Sure
it?
was. Yeah.
You know, all the people from all the different parts of the country you would never
Yep.
have an opportunity to meet with. Okay. So is there anything else you want to share with us today? Have you gotten to tell us everything you want to tell us, or any other little stories you want to share?
I've told you more
You
than I should have.
you look mischievous, so I think there's probably a story or two there that you're not sharing with us.
Well, we're better off.
Yeah. No, those are the good stories. Those are the stories that people for posterity want to hear. So, you know, because you look like you've done a few little mischievous things. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. You know, we were having NVA flags made, taking them out,
Mm-hmm.
put a little blood on them, shoot holes through them, and take them to the coast and sell them to the Navy and the Air Force.
I told you mischievous. I told you. There was something mischievous about you.
Well, it was profitable. Didn't do too much in 68 days
That's
or
true.
90. So
That's true.
that's
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming in and talking with us. And so if there's anything else you want to say, it's your last golden opportunity to
That's
say anything.
Perfectly fine.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you coming in and talking with us today.
As I said, I'm not a
I
sir.
know, but I'm
work
going to
for a
do it.
living.
Yes, but you're a hero, so I'm just going to let you